Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
For years now, we have been subjected to harrowing accounts of Russian bots and disinformation campaigns and malign influence that are supposedly destroying our country. Credulous reporters declare that these troll farms are to blame for everything from Trump's election to Bernie's success to backlash against racial justice protests. Putin is backing Trump. Putin is sowing division, as if Vladimir Putin was some grand chess master and the American public were just helpless puppets dancing to the beat of the Kremlin drum. This neo-McCarthyism led to basically every dissident voice on the left and on the right being branded as effectively traitorous, useful idiots, Kremlin stooges, Putin puppets, etc., etc., etc. Well, the New York Times just dropped a doozy of this general genre about the Women's March, and specifically controversy around Linda Sarsour's involvement in that march. So here is that piece, how Russian trolls helped keep the Women's March out of lockstep. They say as American feminists came together in 2017 to protest Donald Trump, Russia's disinformation machine set about deepening the divides among them. Listen, I will spare you the gory and predictable details of this article, but basically the Times says that Russian troll farms tweeted a bunch of crap about Linda Sarsour wanting Sharia and being a terrorist. Got picked up and co-opted by right-wing influencers, with the ultimate result being that what looked like a cohesive response to Trump's election, just think of all those pussy hats, instantly devolved into infighting and more or less collapsed. Jacobin writer Branko Marcetic did a great job tearing this whole piece apart. He writes on Twitter, quote, "The central conceit of this very silly article is that Islamophobia, pro-Israel sentiment, accusations of anti-Semitism toward criticism of Israel are all impositions of a shadowy foreign power, not deep-rooted, long-standing features of U.S. political discourse. The other conceit is that because Russian troll farms did stuff, then it goes without saying it had some sort of outsized impact. This is accomplished largely because this genre of article never bothers to compare numbers with non-Russia accounts, nor with TV and print media." Finally, Marcetic says, "The piece relies not only on that sleight of hand, but on dishonestly fudging the timeline, making it seem like the Russian bot account started this line of messaging versus Sarsour, when in fact, at least one account did a day earlier and with far better numbers." So basically, another piece of dishonest reporting from the New York Times. They have really been churning out some bangers lately. A piece which creates a convenient excuse, by the way, for our nation's divides and dysfunction and distracts from any real inquiry into the underlying causes of our national rot and how elites are responsible for them. But almost poetically, this Russian troll farm Women's March disinformation story was quickly followed by some crucial revelations about what our own military is up to online. Now, you probably won't be surprised by this, but guess what, guys? Our government was just caught doing all the same shit as Russia. Bots, misinformation, propaganda, the whole thing. Apparently, the effort was so widespread and poorly run that the whole project is being subjected to an audit right now. So here's the Washington Post. This report, quote, "The Pentagon has ordered a sweeping audit of how it conducts clandestine information warfare after major social media companies identified and took offline fake accounts suspected of being run by the U.S. military in violation of the platform's rules." So apparently, you can torture, drone strike, and overturn governments with impunity, but God help the nation state that violates the terms of service. Now, the article goes on to detail the type of content that has caused concern, citing, among others, a tweet suggesting that Iran was harvesting the organs of Afghan refugees, and others that were countering Chinese propaganda about the origins of COVID. Now, according to the Post, the review was triggered by really two things. First, an independent report this summer by the Stanford Internet Observatory and Graphica, which noted that a massive network of accounts had been removed by Facebook and Twitter, and that those accounts appeared to be connected to the United States government. They described this network as the, quote, "most extensive case of covert pro-Western influence operations on social media to be reviewed and analyzed by open source researchers to date." So a massive network. The other factor triggering a review was that social media executives called the government out for the ham-handed nature of their big Psyop. Facebook was basically like, hey, if you're gonna run a Psyop on our site, at least have the decency to do it well. Here's how the Post recounted one Facebook executive's message to the United States government. He said, quote, "His point," one person said, "was, guys, you got caught. That is a problem." Oh, that's the problem, that they got caught? Facebook, of course, has admitted coordinating with governments, including our own, so it should surprise no one that what they are most irritated by is that the company was denied plausible deniability by the incompetence of our government's secret activities. And that's apparently the key concern of this new government-led review as well. Not whether these operations are ethical, but whether they are effective. From the Post, quote, "A key issue for senior policymakers now is determining whether the military's execution of clandestine influence operations is delivering results." Quote, "Is the juice worth the squeeze? Does our approach really have the potential for the return on investment we hoped, or is it just causing more challenges?" one person familiar with the debate said. So apparently, the Pentagon bot mercenaries are not great posters. The Post notes that the vast majority of these posts only garnered a handful of likes and retweets, and that according to Stanford research, only 19% of the fake accounts had more than 1,000 followers. But notice how this influence operation is being presented in the Washington Post compared to how the Russian bot's Women's March story was presented in the New York Times. So in the Women's March story, they made sure to find the tweets that had the highest number of retweets to paint a portrait of a devastatingly effective operation. Here, when it's the US government running the bot army, they downplay that this stuff matters at all. I guess in the news, as in social media, just kind of hard to sift through the propaganda to figure out the truth. That was the thing that I most, first of all, it's not a big surprise that they're doing all this. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.